Ira from Staten Island is the special caller here tonight. Special interview for everyone out there, especially all the Jet fans. Ira from Staten Island. Ira, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, good evening, Max. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. I'm sure as you're doing pretty well. How was your weekend?
Everything was good, and in the world that we're living in, you end the weekend and everybody's safe and healthy. You're
Yeah.
ahead of the game. It's crazy,
I know Jet
crazy.
fans are ecstatic after the new coaching hire.
Yes, it seems like everybody uses the phrase "check all the boxes,"
Yep.
and it surely seems that this guy fits all the criteria and checks all the boxes. He's yet to coach a game as a head coach, but it sure seems like we have a leader in place.
I think so. This is something that the Jets have lacked in since Rex Ryan. He brought a lot of energy to the team. You always saw him run down the sidelines, argue with refs. You never got that from Todd Bowles. You never got that from Adam Gase.
No, you didn't, and this is going to be it's going to be refreshing. It's well needed, and I think it's going to make the fans very enthusiastic to watch him on the sidelines. That's for sure.
He's definitely going to motivate the players. That's something that always bothered me about Bowles is that he never motivated the players. Gaze, he barely had a presence on that team. He always quit on the team. That was obvious. You always read the New York papers and the sports reports. He always quit on his team. He just sat there with his clipboard and his mask and never showed any emotion. I don't think he had a clue how to coach that team. He had no business coaching the Jets, especially after his run with the Dolphins, and he drove out all those star players. And that's why I was surprised when I wasn't surprised when Le'Veon Bell decided to leave that team.
No, I wasn't surprised either. But you bring up a great point. What happened with Case down in Miami? I liked Todd. I thought Bowles was he didn't get enough credit, even though he came up short on the win column. I still think he's a good defensive coordinator,
Yeah.
and I think he related with the players. But Gase didn't have a clue. I mean, especially towards the end of this year, they didn't quit on him. They played hard, but a lot of that had to do because a lot of these guys are on one-year deals, and they're young players, and the tape don't lie. So I think they were playing more for the tape than they were playing for the head coach. To be honest with you.
Yeah, Gaze, I'm so glad he was gone. We never liked Adam Gaze, even when before they even brought him in the building for a head coaching interview. We never wanted him. We wanted Mike McCarthy, and Mike McCarthy's not panning out with Dallas.
No, I know, and listen, I'll be the first to admit when I'm wrong, and I was pounding the table for McCarthy, and I was wrong. It did, like you said, it didn't work. It's not working out in Dallas, and it probably wouldn't have worked out here. But we all did know that when they hired Gase, nobody was on board with it. I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it just got worse and worse. And listen, they made the right move, and I heard today that Saleh is starting to put his staff together. You can't make anything official because he hasn't had his press conference yet. But it seems like this is going to get he's going to get a good coaching staff, and he's going to get coaches that know how to teach, and that's something that just haven't had in a while.
Mike LaFleur is going to be the offensive coordinator. I was reading online, and a report that angered me last night was that he sees untapped potential in Darnold, and I've talked to you on the phone before. I want to move on from Darnold, and something that we agreed about on the phone when we talked was that what if Darnold does nothing this year? That's 1 year off of Robert Saleh's contract.
That's right, and that's the discussion we had, and that kind of annoys me and it concerns me. Not only that, with the fan base, it wouldn't fit well with Saleh. If they decide to keep Sam and go in that direction, and if he doesn't show improvement, and it's not going to be good because you're starting with a strike against you. But the thing about Sam now, he's a great kid. He has all the athletic ability. He can make all the throws. He can move in the pocket. He could roll out. He could do all these things. My biggest issue with him is that he doesn't process and read the field. And that's something after 3 years, you're not going to, if you don't get it after 3 years, it's not coming.
No, it's not coming. And even you said that he's looking like a middle of the road quarterback. And I think it's time we move on. We're not getting Trevor Lawrence now. That dream died once they beat the Rams.
I know.
It died. And I was someone that, And it's hard to root against your team, but I haven't seen the Jets make the playoffs since I was 10 or 11 years old. So I looked at it this way. If the Jets lose this season, because Gaze isn't going to lead this team into any success. I recognize that as soon as he came in here. I gave him the benefit of the doubt the first year. He went 7-9. People thought, was he the 0-7 team or the 6-2 team? Well, obviously he was the 0-7 team. But he never did anything to bring this team anywhere further, and I recognize that. And I said, you know what? The Jets are better off losing out, and they didn't. They didn't.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I never feel that way. It's not in my blood to root against them, and yet I found myself caught up. When they were getting near that 0-11, 0-12 mark, especially that rate. After the rate game,
they were so close.
Right. And so I said, okay, well, they ended up losing that game, but this is a lock. Chances are they're going to go 0-16.
Yeah.
And then whoever expected them to go out to L.A. and what were they, like 17 or 15 point underdogs or whatever it was, and to beat the Rams, it's just not only beat them easily.
Yeah.
It's like the Rams didn't show up that day, and we wouldn't be having this discussion about Darnold tonight if the Jets took care of business and lost the house. You know what I mean?
What's funny is when I started up here at WSJU Radio, I was heavily against drafting Sam Darnold. I liked Baker Mayfield. I liked Josh Allen. I even liked Lamar Jackson. I know you were big on Josh Rosen, and I mean, I don't know what happened with him. He was just a flat-out bust.
Yeah, I was definitely wrong with Rosen. Man, he just according to everybody, he was the most NFL ready to step in and play.
Yeah, that's right.
I really don't know what happened with him. But with Darnold, I was excited when they got him. I mean, I had some concerns, but I thought for sure we have our franchise quarterback. And, he showed glimpses of it towards the end of his rookie year. It was against the Packers, against the Texans. He was going against Rodgers and Deshaun Watson, and he had that come from behind win against Buffalo. Buffalo.
And that's when he had that nice play when he threw it to Robbie Anderson in the end zone where people said he looked like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it was a tremendous play.
Yeah.
And you know what? We haven't seen that guy since. And
nope.
I know he got sick, and Gase came aboard. It didn't click. Maybe it's Gase's system. Maybe it's poor coaching. Maybe it's Sam getting sick. But he just continued to regress. And even this year, I didn't have the privilege to go out to training camp because of the COVID situation. But from everything anybody I spoke to or anything I've read, he wasn't having a good training camp.
Yeah,
and that was not a good sign. And it played its way out this year. You saw. This was his worst season, and that's not good after year 3.
No, I don't think so, and that's why I think it's time for them to move on. You see all these people, Adam Schefter, when the news broke when they hired Robert Saleh, that they were going to move forward with Darnold. And I'm seeing the report about Mike LaFleur, seeing untapped potential. I don't see the untapped potential. The only thing that makes sense if they roll with Darnold is that they're going to build an offensive juggernaut around him. You're going to get the tackle from Oregon. You're going to get either Devontae Smith. I think they should get ETA from Clemson as a running back. I think that would be a great addition to the team.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. But the trouble with this is the danger that they're playing with. If they roll with Sam next year, and you're right, if they build around him, okay, at best, let's say he becomes a middle-of-the-road quarterback and the Jets go 6-10, 8-8. Okay, now if they didn't pick up a 6-year option, which they probably won't.
Yeah.
So now you're in a position where he showed improvement. Now what do we do? Do we have to add 1 or 2 more pieces and he's going to become what we think? But at that point, you're going to have to franchise him because otherwise you're going to lose him to free agency. So now you got to pay him $35 million for 1 year for a middle-of-the-road quarterback, which would be crazy.
I couldn't do that. And then you have Quinnen Williams going on TMZ saying, they should pass on a quarterback and take the wide receiver Devontae Smith out of Alabama. I don't know. I think they should take the quarterback. I really do. I don't think trading all this draft capital would make sense for Deshaun Watson because they're going to want a boatload of draft picks.
Right, and I don't think that's in Douglas's DNA to make give away picks like that. But with that said, and I've been discussing this for 2 or 3 days now, with this Watson thing is getting uglier and uglier in Houston. And he's never playing another down over there. If Douglas is going to do his due diligence, he's going to make the phone calls. Uh, the three number ones, the way I look at it, if you give up your second pick in the draft this year, to me, it's like you're drafting Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
So that's a wash. So then if you give up next year's one and the following year's one, that's basically what you got in return for Jamal Adams.
Yep.
So to me, it's like you're trading you're trading Adams for Watson, and you're giving up the second pick in the draft. And to get a top 5 quarterback, it's hard to argue not to do that. But with that said, I don't think Houston is going to trade him just for 3 number ones. I think it's going to take a lot more.
Yeah, I think so too. They're probably going to fleece us. I wouldn't be surprised, and that's not a move the Jets can make right now because they need everything. Everything. They need a tight end. I even said to you on the phone the other day, they haven't had a franchise tight end, I don't think, since Mickey Schuler, Jason Mitchell could have been something. Chris Herndon's not going to get it done. Ryan Griffin just totally disappeared this year. I mean, where did that guy go?
Yo, forget about it. But you know what? He did show some signs of improvement down the last couple of games. I think he has the ability. I think a guy like Salah maybe to get it out of him, but they're still going to have to add a tight end. But with the Watson thing, I think, we're still talking fantasy sports here. I just think the price will be too high. And I would, if the grades are as equal to Sam or even better, whether it's Fields or Wilson, I prefer Zach Wilson. I would probably go in that direction because I think Zach Wilson, whatever tapes I could find of him, it seems to fit LaFleur's type of system. And I think it would be an easy transition, even if he had to sit and you had to sign a veteran. I think the transition, once he got to play, it would fit his skill set.
It would. I agree. I think Zach Wilson is the guy to draft. Justin Fields, how did you feel about Justin Fields once he beat that Clemson team? Because people were doubting him after his performance against West Indy.
No, I get it. And, sometimes you can't get too high off a good game and you can't get too low off a bad game. And that's why these guys, even going into that Alabama game, most scouts had a book on him, and you might want to tweak it with a performance against Alabama. But Zach Wilson, to me, at least as of right now, as we're talking, we still got 3 or 4 months to go. If I'm sitting there, chances are, if the Watson price is too high, I'm probably going to take Zach Wilson and trade Darnold. That's probably the smart move.
I think so. Now, with the second first round pick, who'd you take? I'm thinking, I like that running back out of Clemson, Etienne. I like him.
I don't think I don't think he'll last that long. It's hard to project in the draft because until we see what they do in free agency, it's really hard to predict. But like if I had a crystal ball, I think the smart playing in free agency, so this way you don't have to lock into one position. You have a lot of picks. I would sign one of the free agent receivers like an Allen Robinson.
Yep. And I saw Sammy Watkins is a free agent as well, but I think Allen Robinson is more the guy.
Yep, and I would sign one of the guards, whether it's Sterney from the Pats or Scher from from Washington. I would sign one of them, and I would try to sign a corner. So this way, you enter the draft. You have the second and the 23rd pick, and then you have the 33rd pick, and then you have your second and third rounds. You could do a lot of damage in the draft, and basically you could pick any position you want because you just filled. If you sign an offensive lineman, a receiver, and a corner, you just filled some major holes on your team.
Yeah, I agree. I think Richard Sherman may come to the Jets. We talked about that the other day. I think Richard Sherman may come here. He's a big fan of his defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh. He loves him.
Oh, I think Richard Sherman is almost a lock to come to the Jets. And like I said, you give him a 2-year team-friendly deal, and it seems like you love Saleh. You come in here, you could still draft a young corner at that point. And, you bring back Marcus May, you bring back Hewitt. I think Hewitt is really...
He's a really good player. Underrated.
A really good player. And then if we get lucky with C.J. Mosley and he comes back after a 2-year layoff, if he, could be, 3/4 of what he was with Baltimore, now you're talking about, some serious defensive pieces in place.
Yep. And his performance against the Bills last year for Adam Gaze's first year, people were comparing him to LT in that game. He was coming up with sacks. He was forcing fumbles.
Yeah, he had the pick for the touchdown at the beginning of the
Yep.
game, and even the play that he got hurt on. I mean, for a linebacker to run down 30
Yeah.
or 40 yards down the field,
And
and
cover him.
and I wish he didn't, but he made a great play. Unfortunately, it cost him this season, last season, and probably this year because he probably wasn't completely healthy going into this year anyway.
Yeah, no. I can't wait for him to come back here. But I mean, another name you got to look out for, as I was looking at the top free agent cornerbacks, is Patrick Peterson from the Cardinals. Could he come to the Jets?
It's another. You know what? The Jets have so much cap room where I'm not sure how old he is, but you
31.
know what?
He's 31.
Oh, well, Sherman and him, I think that would be a stretch. I don't know if they'd want to have 2 plus 30-year-old corners, but yeah, I'm good with either one. Once again, I guess you got to give Sherman the edge before for Salah.
Yeah, I think so. And I think they're going to bring over Blair. I have a good feeling about that from the Niners.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. And, if the Flu's going to run that system, whether it's an H-back or a fullback, I can't pronounce his name correctly, but that, all-pro fullback from San Francisco, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets are in play for him, too. He's a free agent. I think they have 40 free agents in San Francisco. So Kerry Hyde is a defensive lineman that the Jets originally had in camp, and they cut him, and he went on to have a pretty nice career. I wouldn't be surprised if they pick him up.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. It's a good chance that a lot of players from San Francisco go to New York. They go to the Jets, and I'd like to see that because, especially on the defense, that 5th overall defense, I mean, what Robert Saleh can do for that Jets defense, it could be astronomical.
Completely. And it's interesting with the free agent class. Of course, players, they go where the money is. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
But the Jets, if Salah is this well respected amongst the NFL players community, then we're going to be an attractive place for free agents to come.
Yeah.
And with a lot of money to spend, I'm not saying you go out and you spend like a drunken sailor, but I think Douglas will be responsible enough to hand out some big contracts and fill up the rest of the roster with those middle, those B players. And I think you're going to see a big turnaround. Regardless of who the quarterback is. To go from 2-14 to 6-10, 7-9 is not that big of a jump. Especially with a new coach.
Yeah. Something I don't want to hear in the press conference with Robert Saleh is Christopher Johnson sit there and say there's no mandate to make the playoffs. I don't want to hear that.
You're breaking up a little. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay, hold on. I'll repeat what I said. Something that I don't want to see in the press conference with Robert Saleh is Christopher Johnson saying that there's no mandate to make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I know. I think the Johnsons are going to play this the right way, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'd be shocked at the press conference after they introduce Salah and Douglas speaks. I'm fully expecting them to say that they changed the structure of the organization because I think that's an important thing to do.
Yeah, it's time now. It's really time. It's been 11 years since the Jets have been in the playoffs. That's a long stretch. Oh, I think we lost Ira. There we go, Ira. We got you back.
Okay. Well, yeah. Where did we leave off? Because I lost you.
Oh, we left off at what we were saying. Oh, yeah, the 11-year stretch of the playoffs for the Jets not being in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, really, you look at the Jets, that Christmas Eve game with the Giants when the Victor Cruz play, everything has gone south since that play. And, it's a long time. And you're right, 11 years, no playoffs. Listen, I'm not saying, they're going to be a playoff team next year. But, there's no reason, like you can't go from 2-14 to, entertain, a 7-9, dare I say 8-8 season, regardless of who's playing quarterback.
Yeah, there's no reason to. I want to see them make the playoffs again. And it's kind of funny seeing some of the headlines in the papers today. I'm reading that Adam Gase could replace Josh McDaniels in New England, or he could even go to Seattle, which is hilarious because Jamal Adams, he was the main factor in Jamal Adams leaving was supposedly Adam Gase.
Could you imagine if Gase lands that coordinator job in Seattle, and then because I think they still have. I think Jamal has one more year left on his contract, I think.
Yeah.
So he hasn't signed a long-term deal. Could you imagine if they hire Gates and then Jamal works his way out of Seattle because he don't want to be there?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it would just be. So you have Adams trying to work his way out of Seattle. You have Watson trying to get out of Houston. The Watson thing intrigues me the most. It's just I can't believe you have a top 5 quarterback and it's gotten so ugly over there. I'd really love to know what the real details are.
Yeah, and the GM came out and he said that this was you won't see Watson play here again. You will never see him play one more game here.
It really is unbelievable, and he's good. It's going to be like an NBA. Because he has the no trade clause. He's pretty much going to pick and choose which team he wants to play for. And listen, it's all speculation and rumors and reports by these writers and everything. But, you hear Miami, you hear New York. I don't know if there's going to be, a couple of more teams involved. But I think both teams, because of the high draft picks, have the most ammunition, to really, if they want, get their hands on Watson.
Yeah. And I don't want the Jets to be one unless it has to make sense. They can't give up, like I said, a boatload of draft picks. They can't do that.
No. If you start entering that 4 or 5 pick range, no, you got to stay away.
Yeah.
You can't do that. And, like once again, to go back to Zach Wilson, I know you're on board. I'm on board.
Yep.
I'm very intrigued by him. I can't wait as we get closer to the draft to hear the scouting reports and, to hear from the people that cover the business, what they think of this kid. I think the kid has the potential to be a really, really good quarterback in the NFL. And, we're not even, as Jet fans, I know I'm a lot older than you, but I was just reading an article. I didn't really realize there was that many, but since 2000, the Jets have started 17 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I did hear that
times.
statistics. Yeah.
I mean, that's unbelievable numbers. And you got to sprinkle in, Vinny had a couple of good years. Chad had a couple of good years. Fitzpatrick had a good year. Sanchez had 2 good years.
And then Josh McCown was here, and you got to think of when they brought in Tim Tebow. Then they got Greg McElroy. All these quarterbacks that the Jets had. And how about the quarterbacks that they drafted too? That were Bryce Petty, Christian Hackenberg. Oh God.
Well, it's funny you say that. Nobody brings that up with all this talk the last couple of weeks about the Jets quarterback situation. And I know it's a moot point because you can't change it, but the taking Hackenberg is what cost us drafting Mahomes or Watson, because McCagnon used a second-round pick on Hackenberg, and he was so bent on not taking a quarterback the following year that they had Mahomes in the building, and they ended up passing on him in the draft and passing on Watson because of the untapped potential they thought they had in Hackenberg. I don't want to make the same mistake with Sam.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. Hackenberg, he had a terrible preseason performance. Anytime they put him in, I think he had negative yardage. I remember he had 1 touchdown against the Giants, and then he ended up having negative yardage.
I know. That was a bad experiment. I mean, I think he got a shot in some of those other leagues, and he couldn't cut it. I don't know what McCagnon or scouting department saw in him. I don't get it.
And that's something that gives me a good feeling about Sam Darnold not being on the Jets, is that Mike McCagnon drafted him. Joe Douglas, that's not Joe Douglas's pick. So Joe Douglas is going to want to bring in his guy, I think.
You would think. I would think so. And you got to remember also, this is a big. I mean, of course, it's a big decision for Douglas. But if he keeps Sam, basically what he's doing, he'll be going into his 4th year. If it doesn't work out, he keeps him. It doesn't work out. He's entering his 4th year of his 6-year deal now, and he still doesn't have a quarterback situation straightened out. The coach is going into his 2nd year. So then if he were to draft or trade for one next year, then basically he's got 2 years left on his deal, and we don't have an answer at quarterback. So that's not going to be a good career move for him either if he gets this decision wrong.
No, it could even tarnish his legacy. He's this well-respected official and GM around the league. If he makes the wrong move and keeping Darnold here, that could tarnish his legacy.
100%. And, once again, I mean, I'm not going to draft a quarterback if I don't think, if I have Darnold rated higher than any of these quarterbacks, I'm probably going to roll the dice with him, but I find that hard to believe. I mean, your eyes don't lie. I mean, the one bad decision after the other. Now I know I get it. In case we're on the same page, maybe the system didn't fit him, but it's the decision making that gets me the most. I mean, the last year, when he made that throw in Baltimore and he hit Crowder on the pylon,
Yeah.
you say to yourself, "Wow, that's why we drafted him. That's what we expect." But there's far and few plays that you see from him like that.
Or the game he saw ghosts against the Patriots.
Yeah, that was ESPN. That was a bad job on their point.
Yeah.
Part they never should have put that out there. But listen, I really wish him well. I hope for him for the best. I'm not one of these fans that would be, if you trade Darnold and he has success somewhere else, you'll regret it. No, I'm not going to think that way. I wish that for him because he's a great kid. But I just think all signs, if possible, point to moving on.
Yeah, I think so too. And I wanted to get into some more Jet talk, but first I wanted to bring you on too to give you a lot of the spotlight here tonight, a little bit about your backstory and becoming a Jets fan and growing up in Staten Island. If you could let the audience and enlighten the audience and let them know about how your experience was of growing up in Staten Island and when you first became a Jet fan.
Well, I don't think we discussed it. I was born in Brooklyn and
Okay, you were born in Brooklyn.
Right, and I grew up there. I played hoops in high school and college, and then in '82 I moved out to Staten Island. But I was always fascinated with the Jets, even though I was involved with basketball, and that was the sport I watched. And my father used to take me to Shea, and we would go to games. And Shea Stadium was just tremendous. When they moved out of Shea, people were just heartbroken.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask you, that was a question. And speaking of Shea Stadium, were you there December 10th, 1983, when they took the goalpost down there, taking the seats out of Shea Stadium, and the Jets actually lost that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it was also history for the Steelers that day because Terry Bradshaw, it was his last game that he played. He re-injured his elbow. Franco Harris, that would be the last time he was wearing a Steeler uniform, as he was in Seattle the next year. And that was the last year really that the Jets were at home in New York.
Yes, that was their last game at Shea. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. I had some family issues. My first wife had an illness she was dealing with, and so that comes first, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But Shea Stadium was special. And when they moved out to Jersey, I hate to call it Giant Stadium, but that's what it was called.
Yeah.
It soured a lot of people, and it was never the same. It was fun. Listen, when they won, it really doesn't matter what building you're playing. When you win, the fans are into it. Like I remember the '98 playoff game with Jacksonville. When they played the Colts and they destroyed them in a wild card game. I mean, that stadium was rocking, but it was never like Shea Stadium. Shea Stadium was the home of the Jets, and I thought they made a mistake. When they ended up, building MetLife, I thought the Jets should have went and got their own stadium at that point.
I still think they should. I think they should still get their own stadium. I'm not a big fan of MetLife, especially that they play in Jersey. I'm not a big fan of that because I feel as though that the Jets are New York's team, even more than the Giants. The Jets just have this passionate fan base.
Yeah, it's funny. The Giants have always. I mean, listen, they've won the Super Bowl, so they get the respect. But it's the fan base. It's the wine and cracker and cheese crowd. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
And the Jet fans are more the blue collar workers, and it's a different fan base. And you're right. I think the Jet fan base, they deserve better. They should have got their own stadium. And listen, selfishly, I'm glad it's there because it's 20 minutes from our house. but with that said, they could turn on the green lights. And, I hate pulling into that parking lot. And when you pull in, you look to your left and you see, the Giants training facility. It doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah. Because you just feel as though you're in the Giants' house when you're in that stadium.
Yeah, no matter how many green lights they put on, I know they try really hard.
Yeah.
And but like I said, you pull out and, win or lose, you pull out of the parking lot and you see Giants training complex.
Yep.
So it's not good, but maybe someday they will build their own stadium, but who knows? It's just, let's just hope. And I think they are headed in the right direction with Saleh and Douglas. I think they're going to be a good. I'm going to call them Batman and Robin. I think they're going to be a good dynamic duo, if you want to call it that way.
I think so too. I think they're moving in the right direction, even though I thought Ryan and Tannenbaum were the guys. But, it still sickens me that the Jets didn't come up with that win against the Steelers in 20. That just bothered me. 2010, that year, I can't deal with it. The 2010, I can't deal with it. It's because the Jets had the momentum that game, but the defense couldn't stop them. They couldn't stop the Steelers.
Well, that 3rd and 6 play, I'll never forget it, because I was convinced if Sanchez got his hands on the ball one more time, they would have beat the Steelers and gone to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And the 3rd and 6, I'm not going to call out the player, but I know who blew the coverage. And Antonio Brown, as a rookie, made that clutch catch in that championship game. And something I'll never forget. When I walked out of that stadium, I was heartbroken. Because my wife and I had reservations for Dallas. We were ready to go to the Super Bowl, and it didn't work out. What are you going to do? We took the credit. It was not good.
What was the most heartbreaking loss for you as a Jet fan? There's been a lot of them, but that's one of them against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then you have the playoff game against Cleveland when Mark Gastineau got that roughing the passer penalty.
Oh, that was brutal. That was really bad, because that was another team that could have done a lot of damage if they got past Cleveland. Of course, the AJ Dewey, the Dolphin game
in 1982, the Mud Bowl. Richard Tide throws it right to him.
And even current, the 015 team, with Bowles,
against
team,
the Bills,
that team, they were on a hot streak.
They were.
You got Fitzpatrick, you got Decker, you got Marshall. That team was really rolling. They were in 5 or 6 straight down the stretch. They beat the Giants in overtime. They beat the
Patriots. They had the momentum.
They win. They really, if they had beat the Bills and gotten to the playoffs, they would have easily beaten Cincinnati at Cincinnati. And, they might have made a run. They might have made a run that year. Unfortunately, and that comes back to, I like Bowles, but, that came back to his coaching. There were no adjustments. He didn't have his team ready to play. And they came up flat in the last game of the year. And, that's always going to haunt me. Every time I walk into that stadium, I always sit in the same place. And I see the end zone where Fitzpatrick got picked off. I think it was Leodis McKelvin who, cut in front of Decker in the end zone. And ironically, that's the exact spot where Lamar Jackson threw the interception Saturday night. It's the same spot. So if you're a visiting team and you got the game on the line and you're headed that way, run the ball. Don't throw it, because it's not.
Yeah, no, it's not going to work. You're right. That's right. Yep, Jackson threw that interception. Yeah, that was a heartbreaking loss for me, because I thought the Jets were going to make a run that year, as you said, and the adjustment was Sammy Watkins and Darrelle Revis. Sammy Watkins was burning Revis all day. The Jets barely had the ball in their hands, and when they did, it was a pick by Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That's exactly right. And the team was flat, because when Fitzpatrick, I think he hit Brandon Marshall. That might have been where they closed the gap and where they became like less than a 1 score a game. And Marshall, I was at the game. I don't know if they showed it on TV. And he was like 360 degree with his arms on the sideline, trying to get the players, jacked up. And they were just flat. They were just downright flat in that game. And, you know what? Maybe they put such an effort. I'm not making excuses, but maybe they would put such an effort into beating the Pats the week before that they thought they could just walk in. And if you remember, I think it was Rex's last game with
Buffalo. Yep.
Or maybe, but he had down like 6 or 8 or 10 starters in that game. And, maybe the Jets bought into their press clippings and thought they could just go in there and beat a bunch of backups, and didn't work out that way. And it's unfortunate. That's one of that game really still sits in my craw. It really bothers me.
Yeah.
Really bothers me that they couldn't win that game. Because you know what? If they had gotten in the playoffs that year, who knows how that regime would have worked out? What free agents or how to draft. If Bowles makes the playoff his first year and they made a run, that whole 4 or 5 year run with him might have been different. Nobody knows. Maybe Fitzpatrick doesn't hold out going into 2016. And that's what happened. He came, he signed the night before camp opened, and he was so out of shape coming into training camp. And that was a reflection of how his season went because he wasn't ready to play. And, it's that whole thing was botched. It should have never got to that. That also fell on McCagnon's shoulders because, you have a quarterback that throws 31 touchdowns, set all type of career marks for a Jet franchise. And, they left him twisting in the wind until the night before camp opened. That was not good.
And I looked at it this way. Ryan Fitzpatrick, you threw, I believe it was 3 picks. He threw 3 picks in that Buffalo game, and he's sitting out like he's this great quarterback. I get that he had a career year, and you're sitting out. This is Ryan Fitzpatrick we're talking about. This isn't the Tom Brady.
No, I know. And, I don't even remember what the finances they were, squabbling over. But, it's just, it's unfortunate it played out that way. And I remember, when they went to Kansas City in 2016, and he threw 5 or 6 picks, and then I think it was Sheldon Richardson. They got into a fight in the locker room with Brandon Marshall. And that's when Bowles lost control of the team. And at that point there, you knew, they were in trouble. It was headed the wrong direction.
and Wilkerson was showing up late to all the meetings.
Oh, yeah. And then once again, the cherry on top of that is, the drafting of Christian Hackenberg, which pretty much put us in the position we are. I mean, we just talked about it earlier. You had your pick of the litter. You had Mahomes or Watson, and you're living with Hackenberg because you drafted him in the second round the previous year.
And today we sit here still we talk about Fitzpatrick and we talked about Pennington. Mark Sanchez, do you think that the team gave up too quick on him? Because or not just even the team, but the fan base and people in the NFL, do you feel as though they gave up too quick on Mark Sanchez? Because I told you how I felt about him. They didn't provide him with the pieces he that he needed. And even you said it. They wanted to turn him into a quarterback that was throwing all over the place, and he wasn't that type of quarterback, throwing all the way down the field.
No, 09, then he progressed to 010. In the playoffs, he was lights out. I mean, he tremendous playoffs in 010. And then, Tannenbaum and Rex made the decision, that we're going to air it out. But what they did was he dismantled the offensive line. It was Faneker and Damian Woody.
Yep.
He got rid of Jericho Cotchery, which kept that wide receiver room intact.
Yep.
And Sanchez wasn't mature enough at that point to handle Plaxico Burress, Antonio Holmes, and Derek Mason. And that pretty much did Sanchez in. And then, of course, you bring in Tebow in 012.
And that messes with his head, and now he's playing for his job, and that throws another wrench in.
Right. And then you draft Geno Smith, and then, you have, Rex is Sanchez guy, and Idzig is a Geno Smith guy, and then Rex gets caught up in a giant preseason game, and he throws Sanchez in there in the fourth quarter, and he wrecks his shoulder. And just, I think Sanchez doesn't get the well-deserved credit what he did accomplish with the Jets, and I think he could have accomplished a lot more if they handled it differently.
Were you there at the infamous game? Everyone always looks at Sanchez. We already know the butt fumble game. Were you there at that game?
Yes, I was. And
Thanksgiving.
That was that thing. The Patriots scored like in the second quarter. I think they put up 41 points in less than a minute between a fumble on a kickoff, the butt fumble, and interception. It was like I felt like I was playing like a pinball machine or something. It was just terrible. I felt bad for him. But you know what really did Sanchez in was the Baltimore game. I believe it was a Sunday night game, and Mangle was hurt. We had a backup center in, and the first play of the game, Ed Reed blitzes off the corner, creams Sanchez. They fumble, they recover either on the goal line or recovered as a touchdown. and then I think it was Nagata just continuously pounded Sanchez. He took a physical beating in that game. And I think he was gun shy after that game. I really do believe that. I think that Baltimore Raven game in 2011 messed with Sanchez's head so bad because of the beating he took. And between that and the roster built around him, and then Tebow the following year and Geno Smith the following year, I think that's pretty much what did in his career.
Yeah. I thought Sanchez was the guy. I said, this is the guy that we've been waiting for since Namath. I thought he was the guy, but you saw glimpses. How about the game when he scores with 8 seconds left on the clock, I believe, against the Houston Texans?
That 0-10, I just discussed this with my friend Connie. She used to work for the Jets, and she's the most knowledgeable Jets fan that I know of. Sanchez, you mentioned the Houston game. In Detroit, they win that game.
Yep.
In Cleveland, okay, that's that. I was talking about Cotchery. If you remember that remarkable catch where he pulled his groin, where he made that dive, like he went horizontal to catch that pass, and then Mark hits Holmes on the slant with like no time, and he takes it to the house for the win. It was just amazing, and even in the wild card game against the Colts, in Indianapolis. He gets the ball after a great return by Cromartie, and he hits Burrows on the slant. And he hits Holmes. What's the opposite? Who played opposite Holmes? 17 Edwards.
Braylon Edwards, number 17.
Right, he hits Edwards on the slant, and then he hits him on the sideline to set him up for the Nick Folk field goal. I mean, you're looking at that's a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
And then from there he goes into New England, Foxborough, and he outplays Brady.
Yeah. I believe he's one of the only. I think he's the only quarterback. I think they said Flacco. I've heard people say Flacco to beat. He beat Phillip Rivers. He beat Tom Brady and Peyton Manning.
Yep.
In the playoffs. On the road.
That's right. He won 4 road playoff games.
Yep.
It just, and you know what? I don't know when. Well, hopefully we get some home playoff games, but I'll settle for some road games. I don't know when the next 4 road playoff games are coming, and what quarterback's going to be there to win. But maybe it'll be Zach Wilson. Maybe he'll give us the next run. Maybe not next year, but maybe the following year we'll. Wild card on the road, and Zach, but we won't have to worry about Brady and Foxborough. That's for sure.
I got to ask you about this. I believe it's the Heidi game.
Oh my goodness!
Where all the Jet fans. This was in 1968. All the Jet fans thought that they won the game, but the Raiders came back and won, and they put the movie on. They put Heidi on.
They put Heidi on. Well, I did. And I lived in a 2-family house in Brooklyn, and my grandparents lived downstairs. And Heidi came on, and it just had the lead. So I ran to get my radio, and the batteries were dead. And I'm going crazy. I run down to my grandfather's house, apartment, and I don't know. By the time I got his radio and turned it on, they were trailing, they were losing. And I said, "What happened?" That was a crazy game. That was definitely a crazy game.
1968, it was the year, the guarantee, Namath guaranteed it, and they were 17-point underdogs.
That's right. And, after that Heidi game, they never lost another game for the rest of the year.
Nope.
They were undefeated the rest of that year. And, the Super Bowl was just unbelievable. I did get nervous when they brought United in. I have to admit, I did get nervous. But, listen, they got the job done. It's just, it's funny, and I'm one of them that includes in this. We say, the Jet tortured fan base. It's been 50 plus years since the Super Bowl, and I know it. It doesn't stand up. I get it. It's 50 plus years, but it's one thing they can never take away from us. We were the first AFL team to win the Super Bowl.
We were,
and that'll never change. And that changed the direction of the league.
And we merged because of that. The AFL and the NFL merged because of that Jet win.
Well, it put the finishing touches on it. Yeah. It was heading in that direction, but it did put the finishing touches on it. And I mean, the entire AFL. You talk to any ex-player that's around. I mean, they owe a lot to the Jets. But you know what? And this is crazy, but people who are around it, what was even bigger than that Super Bowl game was the following summer going up to the Yale Bowl and beating the Giants in a preseason game.
Mm-hmm.
And you even talk to some of the ex-Jet players who played on that team, and they'll tell you that was more important. Because even though we won the Super Bowl and Namath was the talk of the town and, were the first AFL team to win the Super Bowl, the Giants still were New York, and we weren't getting the respect because of the Giants. So they went up there and they really laid the wood on the Giants in that Yale Bowl. And that was a great game my father took me to because he didn't want me to go to Woodstock. He wouldn't let me go. So he took me to the Giants Jet preseason game. And I'm glad I was there.
Interesting story that I want to get into a little bit later is about you meeting Matt Snell for the first time. But a big thing was that the Giants and Jets were fighting for Matt Snell, and Matt Snell ended up signing with the Jets in the 60s.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's pretty much what really, really kind of got me really glued into the Jets was Matt Snell, and of course Namath, was the finishing touches. But my father took me to it. There was a department store downtown Brooklyn, and my father took me to a signing on a Saturday afternoon. He got these mini footballs, and I got to meet Matt Snell when he was a rookie, and it was a great experience. It was even greater in the early 2000s. To make a long story short, that football I had, I lost the autograph on it. It got wiped off. But they're playing the Eagles in a preseason game in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a pouring, raining game. So I used to sit in the upper deck, but, there was nobody there. And I said, there's no point in sitting in the rain in a preseason game. So I went down to the 200 level, and I sat under the cover. And right before kickoff, a gentleman comes and sits down next to me. And who is it? It's Matt Snell.
Wow.
And, I said hello to him. I introduced myself. And, nice fellow. We were chatting. And then at halftime, I told him the story with the football. And he said, do you have a ticket stub? I said, yeah. And I give it to him, and he takes out a pen and he signs my ticket stub, which is still on my dresser right now. So
wow, that's nice.
Years later, I got the autograph back that I had back in 1964.
That is nice. Do you think, because I've heard stories about Matt Snell and Joe Namath. Joe Namath was the Super Bowl III MVP, and Joe Namath actually didn't throw for a touchdown in that game. There are people out there that say Matt Snell should have been the MVP of that game because they ran the hell out of that game.
He really should have. Snell really deserved to be the MVP, but Namath, because Namath was who he was.
Yeah.
He definitely ran a close second and he got it. But you know what? The sad part, what happened with Matt Snell, is that he's disassociated himself with the organization. And, there's different stories. I don't know the complete truth, but it seems like after his playing days, he wanted to get involved, whether it was coaching the front office or whatever it might be. And the Jets and Leon Hess just wouldn't give him a shot. And I think it really led to where they're at, where, when they inducted Bruiser and Snell into the Ring of Honor, Snell refused to come because he just has this, this gripe against the organization. And, nobody's getting any younger, but it's unfortunate. I wish they could get it patched up, but I think that the damage is almost like the Deshaun Watson damage. It's never going to happen. You know?
No. What's interesting about Namath is that he was the first quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards in a season.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. He was chucking the ball all over. And, that 60-18, some of the players, Jerry Philbin, definitely, that defense, they don't get enough recognition.
No, because they were a big reason for that Super Bowl win because they intercepted Unitas.
Oh, big time. But even during the year, because what happened was they got off to a good start, but then, Namath starts throwing picks. He had like a 5 or 6 pick game up in Buffalo, and then comes home and has a bad game against the Broncos with a lot of picks. And, pretty much the defensive side of the team, they had to sit down with Namath and say, listen, you just got to protect the ball. We'll take care of our end. And, Namath scaled it back after that. And pretty much he basically managed the games. And except, he made the throws when he had to, like when he hit Maynard in the championship game against the Raiders, which to this day, probably if there was replay, it would have been overturned in that catch.
They say that about the immaculate reception for the Raiders and the Steelers, that would have been overturned.
Yes, but it was a tremendous throw and just a blustery, windy Shea Stadium. I don't know how Namath ever connected down the field like that with Maynard, but it was just a tremendous play, and that's just, I'll never forget that play.
Yeah, and that was the play that led them to the Super Bowl, and thank God that they won, because if they didn't, we'd be like the Cleveland Browns or the Detroit Lions.
Goodness. Did you feel bad for the Browns yesterday? Oh, they had that.
Yeah, I wanted them to win. I wanted them to win because I always go for the underdog. I don't want the Bills to win. I do no. I do not want the Bills winning.
I've been flip flopping on the Bills. I like Josh Allen. The Bills, they're not the Dolphins. They're not the Patriots. They're not disliked as much by Jet fans. But the fan base up there is a lot to be desired, and especially if you go up to games up there. So, as you're watching the game, and you think, oh, do I really want these fans to walk out of there happy? But I am a Josh Allen fan. I think he's a great quarterback.
Yeah, he was great at Wyoming.
Yep, he sure was, and that's probably the guy we should have drafted.
Yeah, no, not Sam.
And we could have drafted Josh Allen at 6 without giving up 3 second-round picks.
Yeah, no, we could have just got Josh Allen. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, we just talked about it. A lot of people talk about it, but depending which direction this Sam Darnold decision and how his career goes, if it doesn't work out, besides the fact that we didn't get the quarterback. It was a costly mistake because we did give up 3 second-round picks.
Yeah, I think they're going to get it right with Zach Wilson. And after the Super Bowl in the 1969 season, when they thought they were going to repeat, they lost to the Chiefs.
Oh, that was
in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, you get spoiled. You had the Knicks winning, you had the Mets winning, and then the Jets had won. Basically it was pretty much the same team, and they're playing a Kansas City Chiefs team that was just a tremendous team. And the killer was the Jets were right on the goal line. They were going in for the score, and they couldn't get it done. And then first play, Lenny Dawson hit Otis Taylor and the pass, and lights out. That was it. And, man, lose a home playoff game like that after coming off a championship game, that was tough.
Yeah. And then the year after that, Joe Namath was out with an injury. I believe, was it his elbow? Or was it a shoulder?
Elbow. I think it was his shoulder.
It was his shoulder.
It was at the preseason. He might have tried to tackle somebody after he threw an interception. I forget. I have to look it up. It's a long time ago. But really, after that Chief game, if you look really at the Jets and you got the sack exchange in the 80s, they should have won something. Like I said, the AJ Dewey game in Miami, and they could have won that game to Cleveland. But really, if you really want to really nitpick, everything started to go. Even though they had a couple of good runs, after that Chief loss, I mean, the 70s were just awful for the Jets.
Yeah.
Just horrible, and
Namath was constantly battling injury, especially with his knees.
Yeah, and there was revolving coaching changes again. And just like now, I mean, we're on our 4th coach here for 7 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. Our 3rd GM on our 4th coach in 7 years. I mean, winning organizations don't have revolving doors like that. And once again, just to backtrack, to Douglas and Saleh, I just think we got the right team in place. I really do. I think it may take a little time, but I think these guys are going to get it right.
I think so. How about for the franchise quarterback? Like I said, I think Sanchez was supposed to be the successor to Namath. Who was your quarterback that you thought would be the successor to Namath? Was it Richard Todd? Was it Ken O'Brien? Was it Testaverde? Who was it for you, or even Chad
I
Pennington?
thought it was. I was a huge Chad Pennington
Yeah,
guy,
he was great.
but I realized his limitations because he just if you had to play from behind, he just didn't have that arm strength.
They called him the
If you
noodle
got
arm. Yeah,
yeah, and I hated when people said that, but he's a brilliant quarterback. When it comes to studying the game and with his mind and everything. But he had his limitations. But he more than made up for it. And it's not fair, in that '04 season in Pittsburgh, he's playing with a torn rotator cuff, and
yeah,
he re-injured it in that game. And, I mean, definitely had a lot of guts to stick it out. It just he couldn't get it done. Even if they had beat the Steelers in that game, I don't know if he could even thrown a pass if they'd gone up to New England the following week because his arm was in bad shape. But no, really, I think probably Ken O'Brien. Because he
hmm
was on some really good teams and it just couldn't get the job done. Even the Richard Todd teams, if they had a quarterback just a notch better than him, they could have done something. It just as a Jet fan, it's always, what could have been, and it's, we're missing this, we're missing that, we could have had this, but like I said, I think the winds are changing there, and I'm trying to be optimistic, and I'm excited about what's to come in the next couple of years.
yeah. And those Kenny O'Brien teams, Wesley Walker, Altoon, you had great receivers on that team too. And people always go back and say, especially Jet fans, they'll say we should have got Marino, and Elway came out of that draft as well. Do you regret the Jets drafting Kenny O'Brien?
Oh, of course. I
Yeah,
mean, they passed on Marino because of supposedly some paraphernalia he was doing, off the
yeah. In
campus or
college,
whatever. Yeah, which in today's world they probably would have overlooked it. But
yeah,
yeah, no, not drafting him. They passed up on Favre. I mean, they could have gotten Favre. They played their hands wrong in that draft. It's just, once again, they played their hands wrong in the Mahomes draft and the Watson draft. If Zach Wilson or Justin Fields are the real deal in these scouts' eyes, they can't play their hands wrong this time. They can't do that again.
no. Got to ask you about the sack exchange. What was it like seeing them play? Mark Gastineau, Joe
Uh,
Klecko, Marty Lyons, Abdul Salam.
Electrifying, really electrifying. And it's funny after all these years, as a fan, I got to, going to all these road games. I got to be friendly with Marty Lyons, and some of the stories he told me about those guys were just incredible. But that was a tremendous run. I mean, and Joe Klecko. I mean, why he's not in the Hall of Fame it's criminal. It
Yeah.
really is. I mean, he made the Pro Bowl, All Pro in three different positions. It's really it's not right that he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And you see the throwback footage, and I don't think Mark Gastineau's in the Hall of Fame either.
No, no, not at all. Gastineau was a tremendous player, and it's man, we could only hope that maybe John Franklin Myers, Quinton Williams, and Terrell Basham could be the next sack exchange.
Well, I thought that was going to happen when we had Sheldon Richardson and Muhammad Wilkerson, Damon Harrison.
Yep. But you know what? Maybe with Rob Saleh, maybe we'll get the second coming of the sack exchange. Maybe he'll get the best out of these guys and give us something. But they were special. They really were special, and it was fun to watch. And they gave us a lot of great years. They really did.
Yeah. Are you a little nervous of drafting a defensive minded coach at all? Because
No,
people will
no,
say
no,
this that you should draft offense, but we just had Adam Gase in here. I don't agree with that when people say that.
no. I don't. It doesn't bother me at all because I I think it's interesting that a defensive minded coach he's starting to put his staff together on the offensive side of the ball. And that's a really good sign because you know what that tells me? He's going to be involved in all three phases of the game. And that's what we needed. They went with Bowles. He pretty much stayed on the defensive
Yep.
side. Gase, it's like Gase and Greg Williams, like having two head coaches. Even with Rex, I mean, let Schottenheimer do his thing, but it was a defensive minded coach that pretty much, that's what he stuck with, and uh, it, it just, I'm not concerned about that with Salah. I'm really not. He's yet to coach a game. Time will tell, but I think, I think he's gonna really, grow into be a good head coach for the Jets.
I think so too. I really do. I want to hear the first time that you met Joe Namath.
The first time,
Yeah.
wow, the first time, I was a kid in Peaksville. My father took me to training camp, and I met him and Don Maynard at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, which was, as a kid, I guess I was 11 or 12 at the time, and yeah, that was great. But what's really great is, because I started going to road games as an adult, and I just got to meet him so many times, and of course, not friends, but he recognized me, and I recognized him, of course.
Yeah.
But he's such a great human being. He's really a great guy. He really is, and I'm glad that he got his life straightened out, and everything worked out for him because he really salt of the earth type of guy.
Yeah, he definitely sees that way. He's received a lot of criticism because of the Monday Night Football game. Everyone knows what happened there when they were playing the Patriots.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad everything has worked out. But I'm hoping that this is finally the year that things move forward. I think so with this coach because it's been 11 years. Can you believe that as a Jet fan? Because there has been long droughts where the Jets haven't made the playoffs, but 11 years.
I know. It's hard to believe. It really is, and um, I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say not next year, but the following year we're going to be in the playoffs. I don't know who's on the roster. I don't know who the quarterback is. I don't even know half the coaching staff. But I think our day will come. Not next year, but the following year, we will be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so too. And you also made the New York Jets Fan Hall of Fame. What was that process? And what did you receive as getting into that Hall of Fame?
Well, that was a very humbling and very precious honor. Well, they gave all the inductees, they gave us jackets, and they continue to do that. It's like the old time varsity jackets with the leather sleeves,
Hmm.
with our names engraved in the front. And they had a pre-game ceremony where they introduced us. We got to run out on the field. That's where they gave us the jackets. And then we had photo shoots downstairs in one of the rooms, like they had like a semi locker room set up, and it was great. We're just thankful that people nominated me, and I mean there were so many great Dutch fans that could have been there instead of me, and like I said, it's humbling and it's appreciated, and it's just a great honor.
Hmm. What's your relationship with Fireman Ed?
Friendly, we call each other once in a while. I haven't spoken to him in a while. I really check in with him. Good guy, really, really good guy, and it was sad that pretty much kind of he's come somewhat semi-retired from doing that chant because when he used to, really be involved with that, he used to rock that stadium, and it was great. It was really, really, it was part of game day. My kid growing up, I take my son to the games, and he couldn't wait for Ed to do his chant because, that was part of the fun of going to the game.
Yeah. You always hear those classic Jet stories of Fireman Ed going to the games. Everyone has that Fireman Ed memory.
Well, you know what happened? The day of the Patriot game in '10, we bumped into each other
Hmm.
in the locker room and in the parking lot,
Hmm.
and we were talking. And he didn't want to wear his helmet because he didn't want to get abused in the parking lot.
Hmm.
So he held it underneath his jacket. And as we were walking to the gate to go in, I said, after all these years, I've never entered the stadium with you before a game. So I said, I think this game is in the bag because it's too much of a power that you and I don't mean to be full of ourselves, but you and I walking into the gate together, I think we got them today. And sure enough, they pulled it off.
That's right. You were there when they beat New England.
Oh, it was phenomenal. Great. One of my greatest memories. Great. It was, let's put it this way, the 4+ hour drive from Foxborough in the dark home that night, it seemed like it took about an hour. It was great. It was great.
And then you thought that we were going to beat the Steelers the week after.
Oh, yeah, guaranteed. There's no, I wasn't, and you know what? I see where the players came out flat because I came out flat. Because I was more concerned about getting airlines tickets and game tickets for the Super Bowl in Dallas than worrying about the Steelers, especially since I was there 4 weeks earlier when they had beaten them.
Yeah.
So I thought the Jets. It was their year. I just always meant to be, and it just sometimes that's what happens. You just can't look ahead, and it's a tough lesson to learn.
Yeah. I think when Bart Scott went on the field with the defense that year when they're playing the New England Patriots in the divisional round of the playoffs, was it a Dennis Byrd jersey they brought out there?
Yes.
That was.
Rex brought him in to talk to the team the night before, and they dragged out the Dennis Byrd jersey to midfield for the coin toss. And the inspiration. I would have loved to heard what Dennis Byrd had to say to that team. And man, I was staying with them, and man, they were really zoned in for that game. Especially you got to remember, a couple of weeks earlier on a Monday night, they got waxed up there, 45-3, in an embarrassing loss. So they had a lot to prove, and that goes down as one of my greatest memories as a win.
Something that's interesting when just researching the history, one of the greatest Jet comebacks was actually a loss, and it was against San Francisco 49ers, and it was Joe Namath. He threw an interception at the end of the game, but it was the fact that they came back.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And it was, he came in the game, and it was his first appearance. I mean, the stands were just, you could feel them shaking. People were going crazy. He started off slow, and then all of a sudden he got hot. And it was bing, 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 one pass after the other. And we thought he was going to pull it out. And unfortunately, he didn't read the safety, and he got picked off in the end zone. But it was, once again, very part of the great memories, whether, disappointing or not. It's part of being a Jet fan, and you just cherish every moment. You really do.
Yep. And we're still looking for that successor and a head coach, as Weeb Ewbank was the best probably ever in the Jets franchise history. We thought Rex Ryan was going to be that, but now could it be Robert Saleh?
It could be. You don't know. It could be, but you know what? Hopefully, maybe about 3 years from now, you got the show going, or you're on somewhere else. If you want to have me on again, I would love to come on and talk about Salah winning a playoff game with you. That would be great.
It would be. I'm hoping that this is the guy, because I've been waiting. I mean, I went to high school with a bunch of Giant and Patriot fans, and you know how the kids are nowadays. Everyone's a bandwagon fan, and I'm a true Jet fan. I didn't buy a Darnold jersey. I haven't bought into a Darnold jersey, but I have a Sanchez, a Geno Smith, Decker, Forte, Revis. I have a bunch of throwback Jet jerseys, but if there's a great player, I'm all in. But I haven't seen a great player in recent years because I don't want them getting traded. The last player that I bought was Le'Veon Bell, and we saw how that ended up.
Oh, my goodness. No, my advice to you is hold off on the jerseys for a while. Hold off. Maybe a Quinn Williams jersey might be. It looks like he's definitely going to be the real deal. I was down on him. I was worried after his first year. But
his first year at the Jets was shaky.
Yeah, he's really come on, and I'm very excited to watch him going forward.
What's your favorite piece of Jets merchandise? I'm sure you have a lot of it.
Wow, well, that's a tough one. It's got to be my name. It's signed helmet. Either that or it's not a jet piece. My son, for my 50th birthday, bought me a Namath, Alabama jersey,
Mm-hmm.
and Joe signed it for me. And he signed it Joe Willie Namath,
Oh, wow.
which he doesn't do. He did it because it was an Alabama jersey. And I have it framed and I have it in my den. And yeah, so between that and the Namath helmet, I say those. Oh, you know what? I have a Curtis Martin signed cap, which meant a lot to me because I got to talk to him because it was at camp, it was the end of practice, and so that also I'll put that right up there.
Mm-hmm. One of the greatest running backs in NFL history.
Curtis Curtis was great. Curtis was just tremendous.
How about Freeman McNeil?
Freeman McNeil was great. Snell, Boozer, and you know who? I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. Thomas Jones doesn't get any love. He's almost a forgotten man when it comes to Jet history.
Yep.
Thomas Jones, he gave us a couple of really good years. He really did. I wasn't happy when they let him go, but yeah, Thomas Jones was special for the Jets.
You can't forget in those Rex Ryan years, even though we had the great LT, as everyone knows, but Sean Green.
If Sean Green doesn't get hurt in that championship game against the Colts, and Donald Strickland doesn't get hurt, we probably win that game.
Yeah.
Of course, what happened in that game, the Jets were up like 16-3 or so in the first half.
Yep, at halftime, because I remember that I said, the Jets have this game.
Yep. And what happened early on, Strickland gets hurt, which messed up Rex's blitz packages because they totally had Manning on the run. He was confused, and they were getting pressure on him. And then Strickland goes down, and he had a change up. And then in the second half, Sean Green gets hurt on the first carry of the second half. And, they just didn't really have a running game in the second half, and it just wasn't enough.
No. And then that's what happened. And you also hear about the backup for Freeman McNeil. They had Bruce Harper.
Bruce Harper was a phenomenal change of pace guy, return guy. Johnny Hector was another good back for the Jets. Brad Baxter I loved. I thought he was a good back. Boy, I'm probably leaving out a couple, but even Scott Durkin was a very good back. But the Jets have had their players. They really had. They just couldn't get it to click at the right time. It's so many teams. The Keyshawn Quebec teams, the Wesley Walker teams, the Altoon. It's just the Holmes, Braylon Edwards teams. It's just they're right there, and they can't get over the hurdle. And but I think that's going to change. I really do.
I think so too. And something that really was just shocking, and I was just born in 1999, and reading about the history and the year after they lost in that AFC Championship to the Denver Broncos, Vinny goes down in that first game with a torn Achilles, the first game of the 1999 season, where they had so much potential that year.
They were the favorites to go to the Super Bowl for the AFC. And, when Vinny went down in that opener, it was brutal. But you know what? That was Parcells' best coaching job, 97, 98, 99, because, he messed around with Rick Myra for a while, and he settled on Ray Lucas. And, they went, I don't know, they won 6-1-7, and they ended up going 8-8. They came up a game short of making the playoffs. That was a great coaching job by Parcells once he got over the hiccup of the quarterback revolving door. But that was a good year. And there really was a change. It wasn't the year we expected, but it still, it was a good year. And then, of course, he stepped down, and then the whole Belichick, HC and YJ, the whole story with him leaving, and then now Rowe coming in. But the Herman Edwards era was, made the playoffs 3 out of 5 years. The 2 years they didn't make it. Pennington was hurt. From there they go to Mangini. The story with Mangini.
Yep.
And then they go to Rex. From Rex they go to Bowles and
to Gage, and now Robert Saleh.
Robert Saleh. So we'll leave it at that. And, let's say go Jets, and just hopefully I could love to be a guest of your show. Maybe if we get off to a great start next
Yeah, for sure. Even the draft, if you want to come back on,
year. Oh yeah,
yeah,
you
we could
got it.
do that. Yeah, I run a show. Monday nights are usually I dedicate to my interview show, but I run show where people call in too. So if you want to call in around the draft, I mean, we have each other's numbers. So
Sounds good. Well, I really appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure. Good luck to your future, and we will definitely be talking before the draft.
yes, I'm totally for that, Ira. I want you to take care, stay safe, and have a great night.
Most important, everybody be healthy and be safe.
Yes, that's right. All right, Ira, take care
You,
and stay safe.
you too, man. Bye
Yep.
bye.
Bye bye.